The world has lived under the shadow of nuclear war for over 70 years. Since the first atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, the threat of nuclear annihilation has loomed large over international relations. The destructive power of these weapons is unparalleled, capable of wiping out entire cities and causing widespread environmental devastation. The mere existence of nuclear weapons has a profound impact on global politics, shaping military strategies, alliances, and diplomatic negotiations. The fear of nuclear war has led to an uneasy peace in some regions, but it has also fueled tensions and conflicts in others. The idea of a world without nuclear weapons is often dismissed as a utopian dream. However, it is a goal worth striving for. The elimination of nuclear weapons would not only remove the threat of global annihilation, but also free up vast resources that could be used to address other pressing global challenges, such as poverty, hunger, and climate change. It is time to reimagine a world without nuclear weapons, a world where peace and security are not held hostage by the threat of mutually assured destruction. The development of nuclear weapons marked a turning point in human history. For the first time, humanity possessed the means to destroy itself. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki provided a chilling glimpse into the horrific consequences of nuclear war. The images of the devastated cities and the suffering of the survivors sent shockwaves around the world. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union saw a rapid escalation in the development and stockpiling of nuclear weapons. Both superpowers engaged in a dangerous arms race, each striving to outdo the other in terms of the size and destructive power of their arsenals. The world watched in fear as the two superpowers came perilously close to nuclear war on several occasions, most notably during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. The threat of nuclear war had a profound impact on the lives of millions of people. Governments around the world invested heavily in civil defense programs, building bomb shelters, and educating their citizens on how to survive a nuclear attack. The fear of nuclear war permeated popular culture, finding expression in books, films, and music. The advent of nuclear weapons revolutionized warfare. Traditional notions of military strategy and tactics were rendered obsolete. The destructive power of nuclear weapons was so great that it was no longer possible to think of war in conventional terms. A single nuclear bomb could inflict more damage than entire air forces using conventional bombs. The concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD, emerged as a central tenet of nuclear strategy. MAD was based on the idea that neither superpower would risk a nuclear attack if it knew that it would result in its own annihilation. This doctrine of deterrence was seen as the only way to prevent a nuclear holocaust. The development of nuclear weapons also led to the emergence of new military technologies and strategies. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, were developed to deliver nuclear warheads over long distances. Submarine-launched ballistic missiles, SLBMs, provided a mobile and survivable platform for nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons have played a significant role in shaping the geopolitical landscape since the end of World War II. The possession of nuclear weapons has given certain countries a disproportionate amount of power and influence on the world stage. The 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, the United States, Russia, China, France, and the United Kingdom, are all nuclear-armed states. These countries have used their nuclear arsenals to deter potential adversaries and to project power around the world. The pursuit of nuclear weapons by other countries, such as North Korea and Iran, has been met with international condemnation and sanctions. The proliferation of nuclear weapons is seen as a major threat to global security. The possession of nuclear weapons has also been a source of regional instability in some parts of the world. The rivalry between India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed states, has led to several wars and near wars. The threat of nuclear war has hung over the world for decades. The possibility of a nuclear attack, whether intentional or accidental, has been a constant source of anxiety for millions of people. A number of close calls could have resulted in nuclear war. The crisis in particular brought the world to the brink of nuclear annihilation. In recent years, tensions between the United States and Russia have increased.
Raising concerns about a new nuclear arms race. The threat of nuclear terrorism is also a major concern. Terrorist groups such as ISIS have an interest in acquiring nuclear. The consequences of a nuclear terrorist attack would be catastrophic.
The goal of nuclear disarmament has been pursued by peace activists and some governments for decades. However, progress towards this goal has been slow and difficult. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, which entered into force in 1970, is the cornerstone of international efforts to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. The NPT has been relatively successful in preventing the spread of nuclear weapons to new countries. However, it has been less successful in achieving its goal of nuclear disarmament by the existing nuclear-armed states. There have been some successes in nuclear disarmament. The United States and Russia have significantly reduced the size of their nuclear arsenals since the end of the Cold War. However, both countries still possess thousands of nuclear weapons, far more than enough to destroy the world many times over. Imagining a world without nuclear weapons requires a fundamental shift in thinking about global security. In a world without nuclear weapons, countries would no longer be able to rely on the threat of nuclear annihilation to deter their adversaries. Without the shadow of nuclear war, conventional military forces would likely play a more prominent role in international relations. Countries might be more likely to engage in conventional wars, knowing that they would not escalate into nuclear conflicts. However, a world without nuclear weapons would also create opportunities for new forms of international cooperation and diplomacy. With the threat of nuclear annihilation removed, countries might be more willing to resolve their differences through peaceful means. In a world without nuclear weapons, diplomacy and international cooperation would become even more critical to maintaining peace and security. Without the threat of nuclear war as a deterrent, countries would need to find other ways to resolve their differences peacefully. International organizations such as the United Nations would play a more central role in mediating disputes and promoting dialogue between countries. Diplomacy would need to be more creative and proactive in addressing the root causes of conflict, such as poverty, inequality, and political oppression. A world without nuclear weapons would also require a greater emphasis on conflict prevention and peace building. This would involve investing in early warning systems, promoting dialogue between communities in conflict, and supporting the development of democratic institutions and practices. Even in a world without nuclear weapons, the nature of warfare is likely to continue to evolve. Technological advancements, such as artificial intelligence, AI, cyber warfare, and autonomous weapons systems, are already transforming the battlefield. AI is being used to develop autonomous weapons systems that can identify and engage targets without human intervention. Cyber warfare is becoming an increasingly common tool of statecraft, used to disrupt critical infrastructure and sow discord among adversaries. These new technologies have the potential to make warfare more precise and less destructive. However, they also raise a number of ethical and legal questions. For example, who is responsible for the actions of an autonomous weapon system? What are the rules of engagement in cyber warfare? The development and use of nuclear weapons have had a devastating impact on humanity. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki killed hundreds of thousands of people and left a legacy of suffering that continues to this day. The survivors of the atomic bombings, known as hibakusha, have suffered from a range of physical and psychological health problems as a result of their exposure to radiation. These problems include cancer, birth defects, and PTSD. The testing of nuclear weapons has also had a devastating impact on the environment and human health. Nuclear tests have contaminated vast areas of land with radioactive fallout, making them uninhabitable for generations to come. The human cost of nuclear weapons is a stark reminder of the importance of achieving a world free from these horrific weapons. Achieving a world without nuclear weapons will require a sustained and concerted effort from the international community. Governments, international organizations, civil society groups, and individuals all have a role to play in creating the conditions for a world free from the threat of nuclear war. Governments need to show leadership by committing to the goal of nuclear disarmament, and by taking concrete steps to reduce the size of their nuclear arsenals. They also need to work to strengthen the international legal framework governing nuclear weapons, including the NPT. International organizations such as the United Nations need to play a more active role in promoting dialogue and cooperation on nuclear disarmament. They also need to provide support for countries that are working to develop peaceful nuclear energy programs. Civil society groups and individuals have a crucial role to play in raising awareness of the dangers of nuclear weapons and in mobilizing public support for nuclear disarmament. They can also hold their governments accountable to their commitments to nuclear disarmament. Building a world without nuclear weapons is a daunting but essential task. The future of humanity may depend on it.